If you're talking about GOAT settings, one must always defer to Muhammad Ali, and the oldest Muhammad Ali truism is this: you were a chaos merchant. His people used to say this of him, that he does everything wrong, but it turns out right. There was an ostensible disconnect between his processes, therefore, and his outcomes. Wouldn't train, would skip sessions, and then he'd go into George Foreman in 1970 whenever and destroy him. His outcomes were always perfect. I would argue that there's a similarity there between Ali and Lando Norris, that season to date Lando has made a gazillion errors. Mention no name, Saudi Arabia, yeeting it into the barrier. Suzuka, again another mistake, and should have put it on pole. That should have been 25 points, that race, but it's turned out all right. Going into the Dutch Grand Prix 9 points behind OJ Piastri. Some said, Andrew Benson, mentioned no names, one of the goatiest F1 journalists to have ever goated, that Oscar Piastri, if you normalise for fortuitous circumstances or lack thereof, the OJP should have been 30 to 40 points down the road. Jolyon Palmer had a similar theory, hypothetically, that he should have been 60 points down the road. The oldest truism in F1 history is that these circumstances tend to normalise over the course of a 24 race season. I only say that to say this: hitherto, Lando Norris's process have been poor. His outcomes have been ridiculously good. Mention no names as your case in point. Hungary, last time out, particularly sheepish and conservative into turn one. And then what happens? He plays the Joker and ends up on a one-stopper. That was the only card he had to play, his one and only option, and it turns out right. Per the aforementioned process and outcomes disconnect, he was poor, but it turned out good. Sadly for Lando, it feels like the chickens have come home to roost just a little bit this Grand Prix, because over the course of the Dutch Grand Prix weekend, he was chef's kiss quality. Should he have been on pole? You bet your bottom dollar he would have been, but for a change in the wind direction and for Oscar Piastri having a long distance tow. Lando Norris was quickest out of the final corner, ergo he should have been on pole. How did he handle Max? Well, hitherto he's been sheepish as far as Max Verstappen and his unique brand of wheel-to-wheel pugilism. He never gets around Max, and he did it with aplomb today. He was forensic in his overtaking. But look at what happens. Remember, sometimes there is a disconnect between processes and outcomes. This race weekend, sadly for Lando, the irony is this: he was brilliant all race weekend, didn't barely put a foot wrong. Okay, so the start was a bit techie, but again, he made it right. He was as near as makes no difference perfect, but yet and still, sometimes the racing gods do one of these and avert their gaze. You do not get what you deserve. F1 has never been ever a meritocracy. And where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a 34-point gap in the Drivers' Championship between the only two drivers who ever had a hope of winning it. OJP, therefore, has the whip hand, and I can't help but feel bad. Sad for Lando Norris. Sad for us as an F1 community who have been denied a close championship all the way through to race 24 by dint of reliability issues a la 2016 Nico Rosberg and Lewis. Then it was Lewis, now it's Lando. And again, to reiterate, the sadness and the irony in this is it happens on the weekend when Lando least deserved it. He was bloody well perfect. Would he have gotten round Oscar Piastri towards the end? Probably not. Therefore, we would have gone into the Monza next race weekend with a 16-point gap, not a 34-point. But that changes everything. We talk ad infinitum about attention dollars, and do not get it twisted. The vast majority of the generation, the fans in F1 who have come to being because of Drive to 5, the gangbusters 2021 season, and COVID, F1 being the only sports franchise capable of putting on live international events by dint of all the aforementioned, you bet your bottom dollar that some people are going to start to turn off. So John, you're a legend. 30-point lead, only came one race after the break, not Abu Dhabi. Is a good shout. Oh, the humanity, for real. And that, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, makes me sad. However, I can't say that about Lando without giving Oscar Piastri some credit. We talked about it pre-race, all that he keeps talking about, drip feeding the way he intends to win 2025. He's talking about being consistent, but not just consistent for consistency's sake. He's talking about being consistently quick in the clutch times, the times when it matters most. Mention no names qualifying at the Dutch Grand Prix, yeeking out Delta in the all-important Sector 1. He didn't want to do what Lando can do because he can't do that. Low minimum speed, long duration turns, not OJP's forte. But the quick twisties, he can do that, and he sought to improve upon that, and that ultimately yielded his P1. All season long, he's been making no mitigating for his mistakes. Australia potentially, Turn 6, Austria potentially, British Grand Prix brake test potentially, but outside of that, name me an OJP mistake of material consequence, an unforced one. Oh wait, there are none. This dude is building himself a campaign proper at the altar of being consistently quick in clutch time. The 2 C's and a Q, and OJP deserved that victory. I don't know whether he deserves a 30-point gap, not on the evidence of Lando Norris's performance today, but yeah, and still that's where we are. Oh, and by the way, put some respect on Isaac Hadjar's name, mate. P4 to P3, again, he was there sometimes. Luck is where opportunity meets preparation. Don't even have the argument about who's the best rookie on the grid this deep into the season, because he has a name. His name is Isaac Hadjar. Excuse me. Frighteningly, pant-wettingly quick. As near as makes no difference. 0 unforced errors. Sans the formation lap instance at the very first race of the season. Put some respect on Isaac Hadjar's name. But you know whose name I'm not going to put some respect on? Scuderia Ferrari. Woeful yet again. Let's talk about Charles Leclerc in the first instance. Whenever you make a move like that and expect Charles Leclerc to sieve his way through back markers, you absorb yourself some risk. I can't lay any blame nor culpability at the door of modern day Jean Alesi. This wasn't his core. He chastised Ferrari yet again for making dodgy decisions. Yeah, there was upside and reward, but risk weight it. How much risk were you asking Charles Leclerc to absorb, knowing that he was going to be fighting over the same piece of track with Kimi Antonelli? Risk weight it, Scuderia Ferrari. This isn't Fermat's last theorem that we're asking you to solve for. This is basics. Counting, risk weighted. It's not like Charles Leclerc wouldn't have had to overtake a gazillion people to get back to where he was. There is such a thing, Scuderia Ferrari, as track position and the advantage that it comes with. Bloody Nora, these lot are so noddy. And then to make matters worse and rub salt into the Scuderia Ferrari, the red car with the yellow badge and black prancing course a top wound. Lewis Hamilton, yet again, this story is meant to be about convergence. He's asked them to do X, Y and Z with the car to give him the requisite confidence that he needs to take through high minimum speeds, rigidity at the suspension at the rear, etc, etc, feedback through the steering wheel, just like Lando Norris. Carbon in that you get the picture, you understand the memo by now. And yet again, Lewis Hamilton makes an uncharacteristic mistake and yeets it into the barrier, just as did over the course of the race weekend Lance Stroll. You mean to tell me we're now at the ripe old age of 40 comparing Sir Lewis Hamilton as far as incidents over the course of the race weekend to Lance Stroll? What? Care? What are we talking about? How bad does this get? Now, I don't want to kick a Lewis Hamilton man when he's down, but this is bad now, chat. Now, post-race, he wasn't as disparaging nor self-deprecating, and that bodes well. Green shoots even for Sir Lewis Hamilton fans around the world. But yet and still, to see Lewis Hamilton picking up his own front wing fills me with woe and dread and sadness. I will state, for the avoidance of doubt, my principal contention and supposition, therefore, that at 40 years old, there are not too many F1 drivers in history who've won a championship at that age. Write them down on 3 fingers. Jack Brabham in the 66, Farina in 1950, and Fangio when his last one in 57. Tell me who were the last drivers to win races at the ripe old age of 40 years old. Alonso could have won one the other day a couple of years back had Aston Martin made the right decisions as far as his tyres. Before then though, you're going back into the 90s. Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost settings at 39 and 40 years old respectively. That was a gazillion years ago, for the avoidance of doubt. Therefore, Say all that to say this. F1 is a young man's game. If Lewis Hamilton can come back for this and win himself an unprecedented 8th and a first for Scuderia Ferrari, if they take heed of his documentation and his counsel and sort out the 2026 car in his image, then this might be, ladies and gentlemen, by dint of him yeeting it into the barrier yet again this race weekend, the greatest comeback in all of sports, not F1 history. The gradient of the steep up which Sir Lewis needs to climb has never been more gradient. It's never been more steep. You could argue at this point that it's perpendicular to the floor. It's techier than techie things for Lewis. And I don't know the answers nor the souls. But if we're talking to the reality in real time, this is bad, chat. This is really, really bad. Sir Lewis, in conjunction with Fred and the engineers and Scuderia Ferrari, need to fix for this, lest they wish to continue bringing disrespect and into disrepute Scuderia Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari's name, the red car with a yellow badge and black prancing horse atop. Oh, the humanity.